Wasteland Wednesday!
The Long Walk is a 2025 American film directed by Francis Lawrence and stars Cooper Hoffman, David Jonsson, and Mark Hamill. The plot follows a group of young men in a dystopian society competing in a walking challenge where only the winner survives and receives a large cash prize. On paper, this actually sounds very like 1980s or something like that, only this is very, very different than from what that again might sound on paper if you knew nothing about this. Like, I could see this going in a campy like Running Man direction or something like that, but this is so far from that. It is kind of what I described earlier, although super brief, but with a lot of depth, which makes sense to me personally, since it came from a 1979 Stephen King, I believe it's a novel, back when he was going by Richard Bachman. I've actually read a lot of King. I haven't for a long time, but growing up, I was a huge fan, so I remain a huge fan. And I also have to give J.T. Molnar credit for writing this screenplay. Because, I mean, though I haven't read the novel, I can feel the strong Stephen King vibes in a lot of the dialogue. And I'll say right now, this is the best Stephen King adaptation I have seen in many, many years. In fact, I mean, I'd place it among the best of them, I think. I thought the trailer looked pretty promising, but I didn't really know a whole lot about what I was in for. I think I expected fairly simple survival horror, and I mean those vibes are here, but this is much more of like a character piece with characters that you actually care about. I mean the movie starts with what I thought was a very bold move, which was grabbing you and just making you care right away. And it is just such an effective scene. You basically say our main character, Ray, played by Cooper Hoffman, and his mom, Ginny, played by Pam Grier, and she's about to drive him out to start the titular long walk. And I mean, I think Judy Greer, really reached inside of herself for this scene and pushed her abilities to deliver this kind of primal anguish. And it's like a gut punch so early on in the film. And we're talking maybe 5 minutes in, maybe less. And it's a dystopian, authoritarian America, and Ginny and Ray only have each other. Her performance here really reminded me of Dave Bautista's scene in the opening of Blade Runner 2049. We all remember that. As far as unexpectedly good performances. So, The Long Walk, you might be wondering what exactly it is, the event itself. Why are they doing it and stuff like that? And that's fair, because so did I had no idea walking in. So first of all, you need to understand that the state of the country is pretty fucking bad. Imagine that. The movie doesn't typically focus on all of the details that you might be looking for, but you learn little things, as the story progresses. Apparently we'd been involved in some wars, a civil war even, which seriously ruined the economy. At this point, it's illegal to own things like books, movies, music, media of all sorts, basically, from the pre-war days. And as a child, Ray's father had actually risked his own life by, stashing away some of those things so that he could show them to Ray when he was old enough to understand. And so every year, the military holds an event called the Long Walk, where 50 boys, teen boys, one from each state, compete in a literal walk to the death until only one is left. And things are so bad in this country that literally every American boy just about signs up for this, which is mind-blowing to me just to think about that. This is a huge opportunity for them. It's crazy. You do win a huge cash prize, and you are even granted one wish, but you also have fucking 1 in 50 chances of even living, and there are very strict rules. So it's one of those things where it's a very, very simple concept, but the more you think about it, the more it kind of blows your mind. It's just so disappointing to see this return to barbarism. Seeing society set back to a terrifying extent, and to make it worse, some people celebrate this long walk like it's a sporting event. It's another form of national pride now. And it mirrors the way I feel about our current society. Disappointment and shame, but, mostly just sadness. And to make it worse, some people like will be bystanders for this thing. They actually will enjoy watching the long walk, and it's again, it's really, I guess, kind of like a sports event, and it's heavy. Just, I mean, for me, just thinking about all this again, the more you think about it, the heavier it gets. So be prepared for that. I think. But yeah, so probably like 95% of the runtime here is the boys on the long walk, which looks like it takes place on pretty much like an abandoned highway or something. Even though there's 50 of them, that's obviously a lot of characters for a movie. The plot does focus on a handful of the boys, really, in order to keep things moving forward and just not getting out of control. I was pretty impressed with J.T. Molnar's ability to keep my attention the entire time with such a minimalist story. And in that minimalism, though, I was hit with so many surprises, mostly being character decisions and plot twists, because, the entire film really does have to hinge on the characters and their performances. Because, like I said earlier, this is ultimately a character piece, which is something I didn't expect. And these characters feel very Stephen King, and I mean that in the best of ways. Also, I just learned, I literally just learned recently, I think earlier this morning, that Cooper Hoffman, the actor who plays Ray, is Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. I didn't know that for days, after seeing The Long Walk, and maybe that's a good thing. And I say that because I was just a big fan of his dad, and I do miss him. But yeah, that said, Cooper does give a really good performance. Really, really good. I actually want to check out his other movies. I know he's been in a few other things, and I really want to see those. And I'm just happy to see his dad's legacy live on. I'm sure he would have been proud. And I mean, the way that he plays off Judy Greer was very effective. Only if, even if it's only really for a couple of scenes, but I mean, you like really feel the love between them. Surprise number 2 for me was actually David Jonsson. I was introduced to this guy as Andy in Alien Romulus, where he was really good, and he's really, really good here. And I think it's fair to say that we're going to be seeing more of him for sure. So he ends up hitting it off with Ray, and they become friends, which is another thing that I didn't expect. I figured almost everyone has to die in the end, so why even bother talking to anyone or making friends? Because I mean, overall, it's a competition, But much to my surprise, these boys hold each other up basically every chance they get. Because I believe that when shit hits the fan, this is what we do. We hold each other up. We don't just give in. I mean, sure, there's some conflict, amongst some of the boys at times. And there are some characters, obviously, that bring the conflict, but this isn't at all what I expected. And I thought, in that way, it was actually kind of brilliant. But as great as Cooper Hoffman and David Jonsson were, the surprise performance of the film for me was absolutely Charlie Plummer. Because, holy shit, this kid has some serious acting chops. His character is quite different than, Hoffman or Jonsson in pretty much every way. And he's more of like a troubled kid. Which is not surprising, considering what our country is like in this universe. And he ends up clashing with several of the boys. I really want to say more about him and more about what happens, but I just can't right now. But I'll just say that his story arc was absolutely my favorite, and the film benefits greatly from it. Okay, so I saved the villain for last, which is a man just simply known as the Major. Played by the great Mark Hamill. I imagine the book probably goes into more detail as far as as far as who exactly the Major is and how he got to where he is. But basically, he is the regime leader. You definitely get like Fidel Castro vibes, if I were to guess, whose character was maybe inspired by. Overall, though, I really liked this film, and I think it's really one of the year's best. It's a movie with a lot to offer, some simple yet effective twists and turns, but mostly, most of all, just a ton of heart. This is a heavy watch, I promise you that, but I also promise you that it is well worth the journey. I know it's a Stephen King adaptation and all, but I really got Stand By Me vibes with the boys, and then that made me super happy. Yeah, I think I'll leave you guys with this. I think there's a reason why this film came out right now and not a different point in time, maybe 20 years ago or something like that. Things are getting really scary right now in our country, in the U.S. here. And my takeaway is that one thing that can't be taken away from us is the compassion that we show to each other. Because at the end of the day, we only have each other. We're all going to be in this together, whether it's the long walk or wherever we're headed right now, or maybe a far worse situation, I don't know. But we are stronger in numbers, and even in dire situations, we can weather any storm. People have gotten through worse things. So I'm giving The Long Walk an 8 out of 10. The performances, for me, really, really deliver. A couple of them, especially the ones I talked about, and, meet the demands of a very, very good script. My only complaint really is that the constant walking scenes do kind of like wear on you a little bit, but that's a minor complaint because it's pulled off so well and everything else is just so goddamn good here. I wasn't super familiar with director Francis Lawrence, who I guess had directed like the Hunger Games movies, which I never saw, so I could see why he would actually be a good fit here. So this hasn't been a huge box office hit so far, and it's not looking like it's going to be. But it deserves so much better. So maybe go check this out soon in the theater if you can, or if it sounds cool to you. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.